It's time.
As true evil tightens its grip on a desperate world. The goal is no longer total domination.
I say destroy the cosmos, ask questions later.
It's total destruction.
We have harvested the ultimate weapon. Makes the Ebola virus look like a skin rash.
And the only hope of stopping it is about to emerge from the most unlikely of places. Hell itself.
Ready and hold down. And green flash and action.
The Sci-Fi Channel and New Line Cinema present an inside look at an exciting new film starring John Leguizamo, Michael Jai White, Martin Sheen, Teresa Randall, and D.B. Sweeney. In the next half hour, witness a comic book character brought to life on the big screen. Get behind the camera for some amazing stunts. And see visual effects pioneer, director Mark DePay, team with Industrial Light and Magic's digital artists to merge computer animation and live action, raising movie visual effects to the next level and beyond.
If you've never heard of Spawn before, there are a lot of people who think you just spent the last 5 years trapped in a place like this. Hi, I'm Michael Jai White, and welcome to the making of Spawn. Spawn began as a comic book and has since sold over 80 million copies around the world. In the film, I play military man on a mission, Al Simmons. And I also play his ultimate destiny, that dark and mysterious superhero, Spawn. Join me now as we go behind the scenes, as we set out to bring Spawn from the comic book pages to the big screen.
I was sitting in the backyard one day last summer, and my oldest grandchild said, so, you know, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm going to do this film, Spawn. I start real soon. Well, he nearly fainted, and he said, Spawn? The Spawn? I said, what's the big deal? He said, well, it's only the most important comic book in the world.
I just finished a pretty lengthy run on Spider-Man. And a bunch of us had quit and started our own company, Image Comics, and so at that point we all had to create a book that was going to hopefully sell for us. So I wanted something that's just really cool, and it's dark, and it's mysterious, it's funny at times. It has a more intelligent, sophisticated sense about it. Given that it's still a guy in a costume with superpowers, it's really more sci-fi-ish instead of comic bookish.
My character, Al Simmons, government's most decorated assassin. He's dealing in death for the sake of the country.
The airport kill zone was supposed to be clear of civilians.
You will follow orders and do your job. Got a problem with that, soldier?
Yes, I do, sir. And I want out.
You don't quit us, son.
Jason Wynn, he's the head of the CIA, and he's in league with the devil, man. You know, he's a pretty evil character.
I'll arrange for your transfer right after we've run this last operation. North Korean refinery secretly producing biological weapons. It's up to us to take out the plant. Come on, son, this is top priority.
He is being kind of led by a clown who is the devil's man on Earth.
There's one more item on our to-do list. We need you to help me good. Your all-time favorite killer, Al Simmons.
Why do you want him?
Why? Ask why. When how is so much more fun.
And he's then betrayed by his superiors and is burned to a crisp and sent to hell. And upon going to hell, in his angst, Al Simmons decides to do anything to be reunited with his woman, including selling his soul.
So that was the beauty of it for me, to know this man just loved his woman so much that he sacrificed his life and entered the Battle of Armageddon, stuck in purgatory until God knows when.
Wanda!
What's going on? I came out here and this man was lying next to Cyan.
He happens to wind up a hideously deformed hell spawned.
Hey, mister, you don't look so good.
And he's been horribly disfigured because of the way he died. And so the clown, who is able to go back and forth, goes there to train him to lead the armies of hell in the battle of Armageddon against the gates of heaven.
I don't mind being short, fat, and ugly, but the pay sucks.
Clown, to me, is this two-faced kind of character. He is a perverse, malicious, evil, malignant, horrible thing.
Just think of me as your guardian angel, the clown from hell.
But at the same time, he's got sort of this strange sense of humor.
Funny's funny, he's our man. If you can't kill him, no one can. Yeah, he's funny.
Clown is this disgusting little man, but he happens to know the answers to a lot of questions that Spawn has to answer.
Just get me to a hospital. A hospital? Have you looked in the mirror lately, Birdman walking? Even the entire cast of ER couldn't put you back together again. How do I put this to you? You're pushing up daisies, you're in permanent nap time, you're a fertilizer. Hey, is any of this sinking in? You're dead. Dead.
So we trick him and trick him and trick him, hoping he'll lead the armies, make him mad, make him commit one more vile crime so his soul will be ours. And that's my mission.
Of the people and things of hell, I dub thee Spawn, General of Hell's army.
He directs his hatred toward Jason Wynn.
Time to get reacquainted, Jason.
Whom he believes is the reason for his situation.
You.
Who are you?
You don't recognize your own handiwork. You left me to die in that biochem plant. Remember?
Simmons.
You sent me to hell, Jason. I'm here to return the favor.
The production team on Spawn went to a lot of effort to make sure the movie was true to the comic book. For example, when they lit me on fire, they used real fire. And then there were the costumes.
Man, they're gonna be amazed by me. That's how, because I mean, I'm amazed by the prosthetic work that the makeup artist did, and it was just amazing, man. It's exactly what I pictured the comic book on page, and here I am, pow. They just transformed. I'm as short as that, the blue face, the fatness, the evil, the little sinister, the humor that the character has. It's a Spawn workout video. On the clown program, I lost 20 pounds. It's the closest I've ever seen of that transition from page to visual. So I was really thrilled to see what could I do with this. Become this whole new creature, and it was amazing. I was in my trailer just staring at myself going, who am I?
A clown with an attitude.
What am I?
I am short, fat, and ugly, and that's how I feel, okay?
I had a great time, but those prosthetics hurt, man.
Oh, that hurt for real. Okay, all right.
I mean, it was always a challenge. You're in there going, it's so hot, it's so tight, and everyone walks up to you and goes, you bet you it's hot in there, huh?
Go on, get out of the way, you annoying freak. I'll slap you silly.
With the prosthetics, there are times you itch that you want to scratch, and the little devil is telling you, take it off, take the thing off, just rip it off. And once the suit goes on, you are sweating constantly.
I just have to kind of psych myself up, because it's really uncomfortable. It almost makes you go crazy.
Give me that paintbrush. I want to stab your eyeball, too.
I had blisters on the back. I got more blisters on the back of my neck. I just felt them. I'm like a Picasso painting.
Half a dozen people every day saying, aren't you hot? And I'm like, I want to kill you. Get away from me.
Listen up, guys. Safety meeting.
This is the moment at which our hero is murdered.
My character basically gets burned beyond recognition. My hands and my back will be on fire, and you'll see me in frame.
Enjoy your retirement, old friend.
This is our hero. We can't, we want him to look like it's gonna hurt like hell, but it can't really.
I wasn't afraid of fire, but I did want to be safeguarded against anything happening. They soaked me down in this ice gel. This gel that sits in ice for 4 days prior to being applied. I don't think I've ever been as cold in my life. I was cold before you put this on me.
We're gonna go ahead and light Michael up on fire. Here we go. Let's roll sound, please.
Ready and fire!
See you in hell, Al.
Time's up, time's up.
When they lit the fire, I actually felt good for a second. and I really didn't mind doing other takes of it, because I'm like, man, I am so cold. Please light me on fire once again.
So it looks a lot more dangerous than it really is. That's essentially the key to what we're doing. But it must appear to be amazingly demonically frightening.
See you later, Al.
He was betrayed by people and was killed and resurrected, made a deal with the devil, and that's basically how he became Spawn. Now he's got the powers, you know, that he made in exchange for his soul.
I met Todd McFarlane, this maybe 3.5 years ago, back when Spawn was first being introduced, and he was very interested in making a film based on his character. As soon as I read the first few books, I saw the potential of the character.
The impetus I wanted to put into the character of Spawn was two things. I wanted to have a character that had a wide breadth of what he could accomplish on a power scale.
Damn, this armor rules!
And then on top of that, I wanted to bring in some of my own personal ideas in terms of what a hero would be like if theoretically he was walking the planet right now.
Your anger's your weakness, and they'll use it to rob you of any humanity you have left.
Who are you?
Cagliostro is the fatherly guy trying to push Al to say, if you do things right, you might be able to break this thing.
Kiss it goodbye, clown.
This is just what they want. You're playing their game.
Then I'll play dirty.
Guns are useless.
You got a better idea.
At first, it's a rocky relationship. He doesn't know where the guy's coming from. He becomes somewhat of a mentor when he is exposed as a former Hellspawn himself.
You see, you've been using your armor only by reflex. You must learn to control it. It has trillions of neural connections that are living extension of your own instincts, instantly translating your thought into physical reality. So long as you stay clear and focused. You must visualize your objective. The armor does the rest.
All right, Yoda, just wait a second.
The costume is actually like outer flesh, and it's symbiotic, which means it's alive on him. It'll kind of fade in and fade out. And spikes will grow and shrink. Capes will appear and contract.
He can will weapons in his hands. He heals, you know, if he gets shot, he's able to heal it. He has all of these things.
All right, go!
Not bad.
Don't get cocky. You have a lot more to learn.
Here's Clowny.
I want to know why you picked me to lead your war.
Well, if it isn't Curious Crispy.
Clown is a conduit to understanding.
All those assassin missions were just training for what's coming.
He deals with Clown until he can take him no more.
Uh-oh. You got that I want to beat the fat little man look in your eye.
And then finds out Clown has a surprise of his own.
I'm gonna cut you into 50 pieces and mail you to every state. Clown is a lot of things. Clown is a man of a million disguises. No more clowning around. When I get my rage up, I'm not the vindicator or the victimizer. I get my my hell up, or the vaporizer, or the mind vader. I turn into a violator.
Here's where digital magic makes fantasy and reality come together. Using three-dimensional computer animation, the filmmakers, along with the effects wizards at Industrial Light and Magic, gave Spawn a look all its own.
In the case of going from clown to violator, we go through these massive contortions and the character's in pain the whole time. We go from this fat little round character into somebody that had totally a different design to them, and changing the textures as well. These are things that we've never really approached before.
This is the Violator digital model. The clown does an interpolation. He actually makes a three-dimensional morph from the clown, his human form, to his demonic form, which is the Violator.
We've sort of become pretty good with having actors act at points of view. I mean, it's very difficult after the 28th shot, you know, the 10th take, when you say, okay, see that piece of tape up there in the ceiling? That's a huge, gaping, growling creature, you know, believe it or not. We tried to show people as much as we could what they were dealing with. Fortunately, having a big rubber model down there gave them an impression of what was going to happen. You could say, okay, look, take a look at this creature, right? He's made of rubber. Now, remember the way the T-Rex looked in Jurassic? Like, remember how mean and how fast he moved? That's what's going to happen here.
Cut.
Good. The thing that Mark DePay brings, given his knowledge of what he's done at ILM, and knowing that there's going to be a lot of special effects in this movie, that there are times when you have to know what you're directing and how it's going to meld with your special effects, you know?
You're rushing through here, Talk's following you. Zach will be a few steps behind, running after you.
And since I'm working with him, I've discovered that he invented the animals for Jurassic Park, you know? So we're in very capable hands. I couldn't think of a better grip to be in if you're going to do Spawn, you know? This guy's got all the moves, you know?
Then you have all these weapons that are kind of hanging out. You peel them off and throw them in the cog and say, no guts, no glory. Spawn has these powers that are very hard to create in reality. They just, you know, don't exist. So we're going to be using computer animation to bring them to life.
As he comes down through this dome, the classic coming through the glass cape scene in a superhero movie, but with the difference that we're able to make it much more majestic, inspired by the cape in the comic book. It's alive and it's part of him, and it comes out of him and it behaves. It's like another character almost.
We have that ability and that flexibility in digital to actually do that, which would be very, very difficult in a practical situation in live action. That is one of the biggest reasons to do Spawn with computer graphics as opposed to using the other means of effects.
The story, of course, is about the Spawn based on the comic book, but a lot of the stylized look, you know, stuff we tried to incorporate a lot of that. You know, but a lot of it doesn't work if it's moving. So we had to invent our own dialogue, you know, of motion to do with Spawn.
You're ready to zap, yeah. You're getting zapped. Okay, go down on one knee, like that, and fall aside. Right.
That new technique bridged the gap between human movement and computer-animated characters.
In order to capture the way that, you know, Michael Jai White has moved, we're capturing his motion from motion capture data and inserting it into the Spawn costume.
Electronic sensors are attached to Michael's bodysuit, and a 3D camera system records his movements. The computer then translates those movements to a digital model.
Majority of the big action sequence fights that we'll see, right, in the movie will be computer generated. Violator, which is data that we just invented in terms of the motion. Then we have Michael Jai White's motion, and then we add the Spawn computer generated data over top of that. So those are essentially sort of three different fundamental things that are being added together to make the shot work.
Use your armor! Concentrate!
Besides all the amazing visual elements that are going to be, we're going to have amazing creatures, amazing fights and chases. Surreal, unbelievably strange, and interesting characters.
It's been pretty intense. I mean, it's an experience I've never had before.
Spawn goes for the juggler. He goes for the aggressive thing that kids want. Still has humor. Still has character, still has story.
Are there any normal people left on Earth?
Nothing subtle about this piece, you know.
When they're done watching this, I want them to go, Batman's a sissy.
Spawn's got quite a battle in store for him. It's one thing to have to fight the forces of evil, like Wynn and the Violator. It's even tougher when the future of all mankind depends on the outcome. So, will Spawn be able to stop them from carrying out global annihilation? Well, I guess you'll just have to check out the film and see for yourself. I hope you've enjoyed this visit behind the scenes of Spawn. I'm Michael Jai White. Thanks for watching.
I would say that once you see what we've presented here in the Spawn movie, that because it isn't a true literal translation of the comic book, that there is the chance that it could actually create, you know, a division within the audience. I could say the same thing about the animation, which is a hard R. And so again, I mean, it's as far away. I've had people come up to me and go, "Oh, after seeing the animation, I won't even touch a PG-13 movie." And so you've already started to create a division. Again, the only thing I can do is that because you do have different audiences, what you have to do again is not only play to the strengths of the medium, different mediums you're in, but you have to play to the strength of the audience. You have to know who your audience is. And so given that we all wanted to make a PG-13 movie, we knew who was going to go to a PG-13 movie. It was going to be this certain audience, and we had to then make something that would be palatable to that audience. If they had said to me, Todd, there's going to be nobody under the age of 35 seeing the Spawn movie, you've got a completely different movie that you're now watching. Or if they said, Todd, we're going to try and target this to the ages of 5 to 9, you're going to see another completely different movie. So what we wanted to do was to say, within the parameters, within the box of PG-13, how far can we push it in terms of some of the ideas? And like I said, just the theme itself, you know, I mean, let's go back to the original pitch. Although I'm just trying to make a point because, again, Spawn was a #1 property and Hollywood came to me. But you know, what am I supposed to do? I'm going into a room, you got a bunch of stuffy shirts, and you sit there and you go, okay, you guys are the movie makers, and I've got a great movie idea. Now get this, folks. Get this. It's a guy from the pit of hell that deals with Satan, and we want to make it palatable, PG-13, so we can send it to the masses. Are you in or are you out? And you know, ultimately, just on that sales pitch, I don't last very long. So what ended up getting us past that was that already those ideas were already in place, and I had shown them that on a couple different levels that it was a #1 property. Early on, I kind of set 4 pillars. I'm like, where's the public? And I set down toys. I set down electronics, which is video games and things of that sort, movies, and television. And so I felt that if I could get into all 4 of those places, that I would have 4 pillars or foundations that I could then potentially build a big house on, and it would be fairly stable. And so one of the reasons why I wanted to get into movies wasn't because I wanted to be a Hollywood guy and I want to be a producer and I want to be a star and I want to mix it up with Tom Cruise. It was just that since that's where the public goes, then I needed to get it out on the 60-foot T-shirt, for lack of a better term, that actually moves. The only consistency that I ever wanted was the attitude of it, you know, that the Spawn comic book has some balls and has an edginess to it, and it's kind of dark, and I just wanted to make sure that all those things translated. I didn't really want a literal translation because given that I'm involved in all these things and I have control over all of them, you know, the easiest way to bore yourself is to keep telling the same joke over and over and over and over and over. Spawn to me is something that's in comic book format to start with, and now in movies, but it's it's kind of, I call it Batman if he wasn't controlled by corporate America. What in my mind he should be over 50 years. He should have moved from the spot that he was created in 1939, and he hasn't really done it. And so I found it kind of strange early in development of Spawn that I was the guy that actually wanted to make more changes than other people, because I think they thought that they would be offending me if they wanted to make go, no, Todd, that's not going to work. And I was the one that was saying, we don't need to see the cape. If I never see the cape in the whole movie, that would be okay with me, because if he has a 40-foot cape for an hour and a half, I'm telling you, first thing that's going to happen, he's going to trip about 10 times. And I don't think that looks very heroic if this guy's running around and like going whoops, poof. And so we have to basically go, what do we want to do? We want to show in the comic book that he has a costume that's alive. We just have to still show that, but in a different fashion. A lot of what Spawn does is me placing myself in his shoes going, what would I do if all of this happened to me and I also had superpowers, ran around with tight underwear and punched people in the face, that are the superhero kind of theme. So it's more of, can I get back to my wife? Can I lead a normal life? What good are these powers? Why am I here? But you have to answer the meaning of life, if you will, in the context of a fantastic world. So you go, why am I here, God? Bazooka fight. Why am I here, God? Dinosaurs. Why am I here? Alien invasion. And so you just have to kind of take those things that people, kind of get off on in terms of action movies or sci-fi movies, and see if you can't present ideals that are a little bit broader than that. So given that I draw from my life, it is not by accident that the character Al Simmons is named after a real man named Al Simmons. He's a guy I went to college with when I went to university playing Pac-10 baseball. He was my roommate, second base. I was center field. And he's a black man. And you see at the beginning of this movie that Al Simmons is a black man. Given that I was in comic books, that again, when you have Superman, you got to have your Lex Luthor. When you have Batman, you have to have your Joker. And when you have the Fantastic Four, you have to have your Doctor Doom. That to me, that when I was thinking of the bad guy, the biggest bad guy is the guy downstairs. It literally, on some levels, is as simple as that. That I think most of us would agree that, the guy from hell is probably as big a bad guy as there will ever be. And that if someday, and I'm not saying he will, but if someday my guy Spawn can break this curse that he's been, now afforded, that ultimately won't he become the greatest hero of all time if he kind of defeated the devil? Because I can ultimately say Superman and Batman have never done it, and on some levels even God himself has never done it. So if this man can somehow have his soul stripped from him and his humanity and everything that he holds near and dear taken from him, and somehow find a way to get that all back, then to me he'll be the greatest hero ever. I'm not saying he will, because he is a flawed man, and he was picked for a reason, and he has this wiring in him that we each have, and depending on the buttons that are pushed and what sequence, he could also be the greatest warrior that hell will ever have, and will become just like Genghis Khan. Spawn is about a guy, again, if you compare him to Batman, that to me, Batman is the kook out of the two guys, if we want to start being comic book geeks here. That number one, you've got a guy that's Batman that's a good-looking white guy. So that entitles him to all the privileges, and especially in this country. He's got $1 bazillion, and he's got everything at his disposal, and he could get a date tomorrow, and he doesn't even like girls, I don't even think. I mean, in the movies they show it, but in the comic book, he didn't even like girls. And then you've got Spawn, that's this freak that has no money, no identity, no life now, and all he's trying to do is get back to the woman that he loves. And so, on some level, Batman is the kookier of the two guys in terms of just like what's normal in terms of relationship, because most of us want to hang around people who we can get something back from, where he just wants to hang around in a cave and be a giant bat and whatever, have a butler serve him. But again, that's living in a mansion and being pious, and there's a lot of people here in Hollywood that like that too, because to them that's success. The reason I made him black wasn't for any big reason or anything that I wanted to draw any attention to it. It's just that when you're creating a new character, you have to put levels of interest in there. And so what I wasn't concerned with was blatant racism. That's too easy. You get a skinhead and he sees a black man, he hates him. Okay, that's easy. It was more of, I saw with my own two eyes that living with a black man, that both of us literally came from the same neighborhood, had the same parents, they worked at the same place, we had the same economical background. Everything was the same about it except for the pigmentation color of our skin. And people would say little side things to them. The people that you go, that was racist, and they go, I'm not a racist or a bigot. I mean, ultimately, folks, we all are. We all have something that we will paint with a broad stroke. For me, it's corporate America. So, again, I try to think that I treat people, fairly, except for if you work for the government, then I got a problem with you. But I wanted to present the idea that Spawn has a black man. Why not? Because I got kind of tired with the fact of, like, you got Clark Kent, you got Bruce Wayne, you got Peter Parker. But I also did Spider-Man. And from Spider-Man, I never got around to doing the story because I quit before I got to do it. But it always struck me as strange that Spider-Man has this mask completely covering his face. But we always just assumed or talked to him like he was a good old white boy. And since nobody knew his identity, why would we make that assumption? And so I always want to do a scene where some guy in Wall Street gets mugged by some guy from Harlem, if you want to take stereotypes. And Spider-Man comes in and he webs the guy up and the mugger up, and then turns to the Wall Street guy and the stockbroker, and he goes, those friggin', and he uses his derogatory statement. And Spider-Man takes this guy and pins him against the wall and points to his own face and says, "What color do you think I am underneath this mask?" And the guy goes, "Ooh." I found that the look of him without the mask, for me personally, is a lot more appealing when he's burnt because, A, you get to see his eyes, you get to see his emotion, you get to see him talking, and it's just not a guy muffling under an enclosed mask. And because he is kind of generic, you get this kind of, is this a sci-fi movie? Is this kind of a horror movie? I mean, what is this? And it doesn't fall into the same trappings as your traditional standard superhero comic book that, again, a lot of people would be bringing that kind of, useless kind of label to the show. The darkness of what we present here is not social commentary. So I'm not trying to say that because his world's dark and bleak, that means that, America as we know it is going to the pits and, our society is coming apart at the seams. It has nothing to do with that. It's really just about, again, going back to does he get his powers from hell? Because to me, again, it's like the biggest bad guy, is the devil. Okay, simple. It's no deeper than that. So the darkness makes sense in the fact that if you're going to present a character that basically is burnt and charred and has these kind of vampire qualities to him, that he's back from the dead, he doesn't look like you and I, he has the red cloak, he hides around at night, that again, that he works better in this world, and it's not anything deeper than that. If you allow people to present ideas, but most people don't approve of it, then it won't sell. If it doesn't sell, the product will go away. Where we have a tendency in this country to say, no, we don't even want you to present the idea. And we ran into that with this movie right here. When we go to the ratings people and we go, oh yeah, it's about this hero from hell. Pardon me, would you say? Hell, strike one. We're already at strike one. And he lives in the alleys and it's in shadows 80% of the time. Strike two. They will give you an R rating on some level if you have a movie completely taking place in a graveyard at midnight, and all the people are doing are saying, please pass the tea and crumpets, they will still give you an R rating to some degree. They will argue they won't, but they're lying, that they will give you an R rating because they don't believe that an 8-year-old kid should be exposed to people sitting in a dark, foreboding world in front of crosses in a valley of the dead talking about lemonade. And so it's not even about what they're doing, or there's no violence, there's none of this. And so when we wrote the script to this movie, there was never to be any extensive violence. There was never to be any nudity. There was never to be any coarse language over and above what you can normally get away with. And it wasn't about any of those things. And they still gave us an R 5 times before we finally had to make cuts so that we could present the PG-13 version. And it was because we already had two things working against us. Hell, whoa, you guys better tread a very fine line, and it's dark, whoa. And so now if you shoot a gun, hold a sec. And we go, oh, well, what do you mean? There's 1,000 PG-13 movies that shoot guns. Yes, but they're not from hell and dark, Oh, okay. So once you start dealing with certain themes, people get kind of weird about it, and it's one of the things that will always make Spawn kind of on the edge that is either the exact same thing that either repulses people about it or attracts them to it. That those that don't like it will say, well, it's dark and edgy and I don't kind of get it because it's just weird. And the people like it go, well, why do you like it? Because it's dark, it's edgy, and you should see it's really weird. And so it's kind of, I mean, they almost like repulse each other, but to me, so many things they've taken so many ideas, our country, and polished them so that there's no way anybody can get nicked on it. It's so safe. Make sure nobody can get a little bit of a cut, and make sure that everybody approves this, and make sure that, make sure the women's group and the Indian group, and make sure the blind society, and make sure the truckers. I mean, you know what? 200 years ago, there's a great wise man that once said, you can't please all the people all the time. He was the president of your country, for God's sake. But you know what? Somehow that's not good enough for corporate America. That Lincoln figured out you couldn't please them all, so don't try. The movie is, in my mind, ultimately chapter 1 of about a 200-chapter story. And so if we ever do a sequel, the second movie isn't just going to basically repeat what we've done in this movie. What it will do is it will then advance into chapter 2, bring in new people and move the mythology forward, which in this case, people might stay away from it, especially mommy. Sorry, Mom. When I first approached Hollywood about making the Spawn movie, they said, Todd, what would you like to do if you were completely in control of it? And my answer was, I'd take the $35 million and I'd make it animated, and I'd make it like an R animated movie, and I'd do something that would either completely flop in this country or would basically make us trendsetters. And so, to me, I've always been the guy that wants to go down the path less traveled because, again, either you go, it's a suicide mission. Anytime you try to do something different, they're like, he's going to fail. What's he thinking of? You can't do it that way. So even if you fail, you got nothing to lose because it was already suicide. But if you live through the suicide, if you're in that car going 100 miles an hour to the wall and you hit the wall and you get this great big explosion and you die, that's okay because it was like, wow, that was a pretty cool looking death. But if you live through it, it's a miracle. And all of a sudden you go from being a lunatic and a psycho to being a creative genius. And look at this guy, isn't he so smart? I'm telling you, the labels get peeled on and off me so quickly within a matter of days, depending upon ultimately how much cash goes into somebody's pocket, the corporate giant's pocket. And then from there, if they're making money, then they go, oh. But the funny thing is, the thing that still amuses me to this day, which is why you got to keep reinventing yourself and don't get complacent, is that as soon as you show them you can do it another way, and that their way isn't necessarily wrong, it's just that there's another way to get to the party. There's 10 different routes to the party. You don't have to keep going down Main Street and turning left at Jones. Is that we're going to take a different way. Then once you go, can't do it. Once you do it, once you have the fortitude to get past all of that and do it, and it is successful, so there's a bunch of hurdles you got to get over, then they go, it can be done and is successful. Do 20 knockoffs of it. And all of a sudden become status quo. What you were going is like, no, I don't want to do status quo. Whoosh, become status quo. So then you have to end up basically reinventing your new stuff so that, again, if Spawn, let me just tell you, if Spawn made $300 million worldwide, they would be staring at each other going, what we need is dark superheroes. That would it. That's as simple as they would look at the Spawn movie and they would go, dark superheroes. I wouldn't even doubt they would change Batman and go, gotta make them dark. Spawn was made twice as much, gotta make it dark. It's as simple as that. They have knee-jerk reactions and they just want to basically go, let somebody else do it, show us it's successful, then we will come back and do cheap imitations of it. So on some level, I hope that Spawn is a moderate success so that, again, I keep going to these areas where I'm kind of a one-of-a-kind guy because on some level, it's easy to win a race that you're not in with anybody. It's like, oh, good, I came in first and last. Again, it depends on whether you think that that's good or bad. But if people go to the left, I've always gone to the right. Never get married to the right. And then as soon as people go to the right, go to the left. Just always go where they're not. And so it was easy. And let's take Spawn. They're doing cute, cuddly, nice, politically correct stuff. I'm gonna do a movie about hell, PG-13. I don't got much competition. I'm telling you, because I'm the only guy out there doing that. Woohoo! Good. Whether it's good or bad, I'm the only guy dumb enough, I guess, or brave enough, either one, I'll agree with either one, that wants to present an idea about hell to the masses. Okay. And as soon as everybody does hell, I'm going to heaven. Or I'm going to do that Buddhist story that I have been saving up for. So. I hope you enjoyed the R-rated director's cut here, and that you'll see that some of the added footage was actually necessary in bringing up the enjoyment level of it. Most of you have probably seen both versions, and hopefully you'll agree with us that it was necessary to have in some form the true presentation of what we set out to do, and that you'll see that it made for a better picture. See you around. Bye.